They called her the Swedish Nightingale, and she was very, truly a rock star. Also, she was possibly the inspiration for the story that became Frozen. I'm a classical nerd, and today we're talking about Jenny Lind. Jenny Lind was born in 1820 as the illegitimate daughter of a bookkeeper and a school teacher. They ended up married when Lind was a teenager due to various political and social reasons. She had little to no formal musical training, and in fact, her musical aptitude was only discovered by sheer happenstance, when the maid of a visiting nobleman heard her sing to her cat because she was lonely, and took it upon herself to see her enrolled in the Royal Dramatic Theatre. She used her voice so much while at the theatre in Stockholm that she nearly completely lost her voice. Her career was saved at the age of 21 due to the efforts of the pioneering vocal instructor Manuel Garcia, who was himself the brother of the famous operatic sopranos Maria Malibran and Pauline Viardot. Lind suffered from a horrible acute stage fright that continued to manifest itself in different ways throughout her career, although she was able to manage it by transforming from a young and shy girl into a powerful and commanding stage presence, essentially creating a different character to really take hold of an operatic stage, something that she really wasn't able to do in her personal life. The opera composer Giacomo Meyerbeer was an early admirer of Lind's talent and insisted that she try out for the Paris Opera while she was still taking lessons with Garcia. She was roundly rejected, and in fact she held a grudge against the opera for years to come. She would sing anywhere and everywhere except the Paris Opera. Her triumphant return to the stage occurred in her native Sweden, but she had international ambitions and soon was touring the nearby Denmark, where Hans Christian Andersen met her and fell in love with her. The feeling was not mutual, and Andersen really didn't take this well, and some scholars believe that he actually wrote The Snow Queen to depict Lind's icy heart. This story, of course, was later transformed and adapted into what we now know as Disney's Frozen, mostly I would imagine to the addition of small and very annoying talking snowmen. But Denmark was only a stepping stone towards a larger world. Meyerbeer was still on her side though, and through him, she got the title role in a production of Bellini's Norma in Berlin. There she met some of the most distinguished musicians of her day, Berlioz, the Schumanns, and Felix Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn's admiration for Lind was so strong that the exact nature of their relationship has been called into question numerous times over the years. There's no surviving evidence for adultery on Mendelssohn's part, but scholars are still of two minds about this, which shows you exactly how controversial it is. But it was in Berlin that she really started what she was known for: charity concerts. She would give concerts without engagement fees or donate the proceeds to charitable causes. And while Lind by no extent of the imagination invented the charity concert, she really pretty much nearly trademarked it. She didn't do it to increase her fame, but that's what really happened. It was a boon to her career because people started knowing her as the singer who gives away all of her money to charity. It went a long ways toward establishing her status as the premier singer of her time. Her abilities on stage, combined with her charitable support, gave her the nickname of the Swedish Nightingale. Enough people passed out, being nearly crushed to death in a crowd rushing to get into a Jenny Lind concert, that the condition was actually given a name: the Jenny Lind Crush. Clara Schumann and Frédéric Chopin had much to say about the luminosity of her voice in the highest register, and composers who were writing for her voice specifically would often exploit this. Like many musicians of continental Europe, she went to London and was met with great acclaim. Not only did the royal family appreciate the finer bits of music, but England was long known as the land without music, for all of their important musical minds seemingly were foreign-born. She spent 2 years in London to enormous acclaim and being mobbed by even more enormous crowds. Queen Victoria even threw flowers at her feet. But after this, she retired from the operatic stage, and to this day, no one knows why. Maybe she was burnt out, maybe she found it draining, maybe it was artistically unfulfilling, or maybe something happened in her personal life that we just don't know much about. But either way, after 1849, she was never again to be found on an operatic stage, although she's still concertized. Ironically, after most of a lifetime of searching, Felix Mendelssohn finally found a suitable operatic libretto and began writing her a part in it. But, of course, he died. He did, however, have Lind's voice in mind when he was writing his last great work, the oratorio Elijah. She sang it in a charity concert a year after Mendelssohn's passing, and ironically enough, it became her first performance in any oratorio ever. She raised enough money for this to actually found a scholarship in Mendelssohn's name at the Leipzig Conservatory. Enter P.T. Barnum. Unethical? Almost certainly. A great promoter? Definitely. Anyway, Barnum wanted to legitimize his career a little bit, and so he approached Lind about a concert tour of America, guaranteed to make them both millions of dollars. In today's money. It was thousands of dollars in theirs, but that was a lot of money. Lind knew there was significant money to be raised by going to the United States, but she wanted it all to be for her favorite charities. Eventually, she agreed to terms with Barnum and sailed over. Her fame in Europe already preceded her, but combined with Barnum's tactics, he was able to whip up a frenzy before she even reached the shore. This was not unlike the fame that preceded Franz Liszt on his concert tours. Listomania meet Lindomania. No, really, that's actually what they called it. Barnum successfully pitched Lind as a down-to-earth talent with a natural God-given ability for singing who just wanted to raise money for good causes. And this worked. Some tickets had to be sold at auction for upwards of $650. And that was an absurd price for the time. Concerts, when announced, could sell out within minutes. Hotels paid Barnum up to $1,000 for the honor of having Lind and her entourage spend the night there. When she was in New York, the NYPD had to specially escort her around because the crowds were so large. And when night fell, the fire department led huge crowds carrying torches, singing to her. Well, actually just singing to her hotel, but it was the thought that counts. She raised over $10 million for charity, which only increased her fame, which Barnum was able to spin into even higher ticket prices. But she didn't like the way Barnum was treating the whole affair, and so after a year of management, they agreed to split ways. Barnum was probably just fine with this because he got over $14 million in today's money, which we're assuming he kept. Lind was totally fine being her own concert tour manager, although she never was able to draw in quite the same sums as Barnum. She got the last laugh on him by continuing the tour for another year. She replaced arranger and accompanist Julius Benedict for Otto Goldschmidt, also a minor composer in his own right. And all the tour didn't just take her to the United States, she also toured Canada and Cuba. Cubans in Havana were initially a little skeptical of these really high ticket prices, but Lindomania swept through the island anyway. They just had to hear her sing first. During the latter half of this grand tour, Lind and Goldschmidt had fallen in love, and they married towards the end of the tour in Boston. It was also in Boston where, according to rumor, she climbed a tower and sang to all the people who couldn't get into her concert just so they wouldn't riot. That tower is still known as the Jenny Lind Tower, and even if it didn't happen, it's still the most interesting to occur within the Millard Fillmore presidency. Sorry, Millard. Her return to Europe first took her to Germany and eventually to England, where she settled down and had 3 children. Of course, settling down was absolutely not in her nature, and she continued keeping up appearances in the concert hall. But she never went on another tour again, and her musical efforts tended towards the pedagogical. As she aged, her concerts became less and less frequent until her permanent retirement in 1883. She barely missed the age of recording, so we will never know truly what her golden voice sounded like. She died in November 1887. At the age of 67, of a cerebral hemorrhage, and after her death she gave a large part of her wealth to charities that helped Sweden's youth. It's difficult to assess the true nature of Lind's talent, given not only the aforementioned lack of recording, but also because her fame preceded her so much that critics were either going to absolutely praise her no matter what happened, or they were going to find her as simply not living up to the hype. In short, due to her fame, the press really can't be trusted with accurate reviews. Many attribute her lasting fame as coming through her charitable donations. Even critics who admired her said that opera was her weak suit, which might help explain her abandonment of the genre. But this is far from saying that she didn't have any talent as a performer. She clearly did, especially because she impressed musicians with such high standards as Mendelssohn. Her legacy can be seen in a great many places: a gold rush town in California, a school in Minnesota, a chapel in Illinois, an island in Canada's far north, the first mass-produced steam locomotive, a soup mentioned in James Joyce's Ulysses, and of course, how most people heard of her name, a popular style of bed. Various pies, bonnets, tobacco products, and alcohols all exploited her fame and used her name in order to push goods off of the shelves. In many ways, it's the origin of marketing. Either way, Lind's legend lives on in an astounding number of ways.